Welcome to Gatsby, Lesson 4. Before we begin today, when you go to the site, you're going to notice up here there's a banner telling you your novel is due in class by September 15th. You must obtain this novel or your collection of short stories or play somehow. You cannot just check it out from the library because you are writing in this book. You cannot just use sticky notes. You have to write and highlight in this book. The next thing I want to bring your attention to, if you look at your calendar, please note it is also on your calendar that you need to have your text in class by the 15th. So just keep that in mind. Over here, you'll see an annotation checkpoint. We'll talk about that later. Now, when you come over to your weekly lessons for September 8th through the 11th, we're going to scroll down to Tuesday. Now, we are going to go through slides 22 through 29 today. So we're starting with lesson 4. Let me get to slide 22. There we are. So, first things first. We're going to write a paragraph today, and it's going to be a little bit longer. Now, when we write this, for those of you at home, we will kind of go over this tomorrow in class, and you will have some time to make sure you've done your paragraph correctly before you turn it in. The questions for this paragraph. What is the narrative structure of The Great Gatsby? Remember, we are getting a first-person point of view from Nick Carraway. He is the narrator. He is the one telling us this story. And that means we have a first-person narrative. All that means is we don't know anything except what the narrator knows. So everything has been filtered through their thoughts and opinions. So we have to remember, because of that, we might not be getting accurate information. Everything we get is going to be from Nick's perspective. It's how he perceives what is going on. And that answers the question, how could the narrative structure influence the way the story is told? We have to remember Nick has a very specific background, and that's going to affect the way he sees what's going on around him and the way he judges or doesn't judge. Now, the prompt is those two questions. What is the narrative structure of The Great Gatsby, and how could that influence the way the story is told? Use details from the first 4 pages to support your claim. So the other day, I believe it was last Thursday, we read pages 1 through 4, and I posted a video annotating those pages. So you need to use details from those 4 pages to help you write this paragraph. If you need a sentence frame to start your first sentence, the blank narrative structure, which we've already answered, of The Great Gatsby could influence the way the story is presented because, and then you would fill in the blank with your claim. That can be the first sentence of your paragraph if you would like. Now, when you cite evidence, you need to make sure you lead it in. Say something like Nick mentions, the narrator notices. Then you would put your direct quote. Then you would have Fitzgerald, which is the author's last name, and then the page number. You always need this, so make sure you do not leave it out. Now, we need to make sure we're sandwiching our evidence. What that means, before you put the evidence, you have a whole sentence explaining what is happening in the novel at the time of the evidence. So that's a whole sentence just explaining what's going on. Then you have the evidence itself, which is on the previous slide, the thing you cite. No more than 1 sentence. I do not want you to put in a whole paragraph of evidence. And then you need an explanation sentence. This is 1 to 2 sentences explaining how that evidence supports your claim. So each piece of evidence should have 3 sentences with it, 1 before, 1 after, and then a sentence with the evidence. That's called sandwiching your evidence. You might have heard it called hugging your quotes or your evidence. Now, you're going to answer the prompt in Google Classroom. This one's a little different from the last one. You're using 2 pieces of evidence instead of just 1 piece of evidence. So keep that in mind. You are using 2 pieces of evidence, not just one. When you come back over to the site, there's going to be the talk through video, which I'm making now. And then there's going to be the assignment on Google Classroom. So if you jump over to Google Classroom, you are going to see the question, the first thing that pops up in the Gatsby section. Now, this one's worth 30 points, 7 to 9 sentences, 2 pieces of evidence. 5 points if the claim is clearly stated, that's your first sentence. Please use the sentence frame if you're not sure. 10 points because your 2 pieces of evidence need to be cited correctly. 5 points if you explain how the evidence supports the claim. And 5 points if you meet the sentence minimum of 7 to 9 sentences. So you'll type your paragraph and then click Turn In. Again, we will go over it in class the next day. While we're in Google Classroom, another thing I want you to notice, there's a new Bellwork assignment. This is for the next 2 weeks. So remember, you're using this document for your bell ringer every day. Now, I'm going to make a second video and merge it with this one where I'm going to write out and kind of explain some brainstorming ideas for your paragraph and give you some reminders of things that we know about Nick in case you have forgotten. All right, as promised, I'm going to write out and go through with you some things that we know about Nick, our narrator. These are things that would affect his perception of the story, characters, and events happening around him. So first thing we know about him, he is from the Midwest. This is important because he's now living in New York City. So he's coming from the Midwest where there's not a big city, not a whole lot going on. The people are not... They are obeying prohibition laws and non-drinking laws there in the Midwest. He's not used to the law breaking that he's going to experience in New York City, if you will. Also, he went to Yale. So this means, one, that he is well educated, but also that he is well off, and that's another one. His family is quite well off. So much so that they are paying for him to live in New York City for an entire year. So that's an entire year where he does not have to worry about paying his bills because his family will do it for him. Another important fact about Nick, he says that he doesn't judge. And this makes people want to tell him their deep dark secrets. Now, this is true. He outwardly doesn't judge people. So people do tell him the secrets. However, we see his inner thoughts and we come to realize that he does, in fact, inwardly judge these people. Another thing about Nick, his family owns a hardware store. So again, this is family money that he's living off of. He doesn't have to worry about a job or if money will be there or if something happens in New York and he goes back home. He doesn't have to worry about being stuck without money. So these are just a few things about Nick. There are many, many other things that could affect his perception. These are just some key points. You might want to look for evidence of these, and this will help you when you are writing your paragraph on Google Classroom today.